네가 원해 글쎄 말해 내긴 너 바래 오늘 밤 우리 둘이서 Making no faces 눈을 바라보고 baby 계속해 네가 원하는
In a dimly lit room, the air thick with smoke and drinks, sits Jimin. He's not your average guy. His hands are stained with, and his eyes hold a cold, calculating rage. Women come and go, but they never seem to stick around for long. They're either too scared of him or they just can't handle the intensity of his presence. Tonight, though, there's something different about him. Something that he can't quite put his finger on. He leans back in his chair, watching as the bartender pours another shot of drink. He takes a sip, feeling the warmth spread through his chest, and for a moment, he is transported back to a different time. A time when he was just a boy, sitting in his grandfather's study, listening to stories of the old country. Stories of honor and loyalty, of love and loss. And then she walks in. She's unlike any of the other girls he's seen here tonight. Her hair falling in soft waves around her delicate shoulders. Her eyes are big and hazel, and they seem to light up the room when she smiles. He can't take his eyes off of her, and for a moment he feels a strange stirring in his chest. Something he hasn't felt in a long time. She glances around, looking a little lost, and he can't help but feel protective. He motions for the bartender to send her a drink, and when she looks over at him, their eyes meet. There's an instant connection, a spark that makes his heart race. He's not sure what it is about her, but he knows that he has to find out. He walks over to her, feeling self-conscious all of a sudden. You look like you could use a friend, he says, his voice rough around the edges. She nods, swelling hard, and he realizes that she's just as nervous as he is. He takes a step closer, noticing the way she tries to hide her shaking hands in her lap. What's your name? He asks, his voice gentler now. Vian, she stutters. My name is Vian. He reaches out and takes her hand. His grip firm, but not too tight. Vian, he repeats, testing the way it feels on his tongue. I'm Jimin. She blushes at his, and for a moment he wonders if she can feel the way his heart is racing. Would you like to dance with me, Vian? He asks, holding out his hand. She hesitates before finally nodding. They dance slowly, lost in each other's eyes. Jimin feels like he's floating weightless. He can't believe how good it feels to be this close to her. He wants to tell her everything, to share all of his secrets and hopes and fears, but he knows that she's not ready yet. So, for now, he'll just enjoy and hope that she feels the same way. When the music finally comes to an end, they stand there not wanting to break the spell. Jimin takes a deep breath, trying to gather his thoughts. "I should probably take you home," he says, running a hand through his hair. Wyan nods, looking down at her feet. "Thank you for tonight, Jimin. It was special." He smiles at her, feeling his heart soar. "I hope we can do it again sometime." She returns his smile, and for a moment he thinks she's about to say yes. But then she turns and walks away, leaving him standing there wanting more. He watches her go, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Part of him is furious that she could walk away from something so good, while another part of him understands that she is not ready for whatever it is they have between them. He takes a deep breath and turns back to the bar, ordering another drink. The bartender, who's been watching the whole thing play out, pours him another shot of drink and slides it across the counter. "She's a lucky girl," he says, nodding in Wyan's direction. Jimin just in response. He takes the drink and downs it, feeling the heat spread through his chest. For a moment he imagines going after her, telling her how he feels. But then he remembers on his hands, the life he's built here. He doesn't belong in her world, and she doesn't belong in his. With a sigh, he pays the bartender and heads out into the night, wondering if he'll ever see Wyan again. Days turn into weeks, and Jimin tries to forget about Wyan. He spends his nights and fighting, his days working to expand his empire. But every time he closes his eyes, he sees her face. He wonders if she is thinking about him too. One night, as he's sitting in his office, going over some paperwork, his phone rings. He answers it without looking. "Hello?" "Jimin?" a familiar voice asks. He jumps to his feet, his heart racing. "Wyan?" "Yes." She whispers,
It's me. I need your help.
He listens intently as she explains that she's in trouble, that someone is after her. His protective instincts flare up, and he assures her that he'll do whatever he can to help. They arrange to meet at a secluded spot, and Jimin does his best to gather his men. As they wait, Jimin can't help but wonder why Wyan has come to him. They've barely spoken since that night at the club, and yet here she is seeking his protection. He tries to push away the memories of their dance, of the way she. This is business, he tells himself. Nothing more. When Wyan arrives, she is clearly shaken. He takes her hand, leading her to safety, his men forming a tight circle around them. Who's after you? He demands. She looks around, her eyes darting from face to face, before finally meeting his. It's someone from my past, someone I thought I'd left behind. Jimin nods, understanding all too well the weight of her words. He knows what it's like to have secrets like that, to have a life you've worked so hard to leave behind. He pulls her closer, pressing a comforting hand to the small of her back. You don't have to go through this alone, he says, his voice firm and steady. I'm here for you. They spend the rest of the night planning their counter, and Jimin finds himself lost in Wyan's eyes once more. There's a spark there, a connection that he can't ignore. He wonders if maybe, just maybe, there's a way for them to be together, despite the darkness that surrounds them. As the sun begins to rise, he takes her hand, squeezing it gently. Stay close, he says, his voice low and reassuring. I won't let anyone hurt you. Wyan smiles up at him, and for a moment he thinks he sees a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Thank you, she whispers, for everything. The sun rises higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over the city. Jimin leads them through a maze of alleys and back streets, his men, them on either side. They duck into an abandoned warehouse, and Jimin calls a meeting. His men gather around, their faces grim, as they listen to the plan. Throughout the day, they set up and prepare. Jimin spends as much time as he can with Wyan, trying to reassure her that she's safe now. They find moments of comfort in each other's company, sharing stories and laughter amidst the chaos. As the sun begins to set, Jimin knows that the time for action is near. He pulls Wyan aside, his expression serious. "Are you sure you want to be a part of this?" he asks. "There's no turning back once we start." Wyan takes a deep breath, her chest rising and falling beneath her. "I know the risks," she says, her voice steady. "But I can't let him win, not without a fight." Jimin nods, understanding the determination in her words. He presses a small, reassuring. "Then let's do this," he says, his voice low and steady. "Together." The tension in the air is palpable as they wait for their target to make his move. Jimin's men spread out through the warehouse, there at the ready. He stands beside Wyan, his arm around her shoulders, protecting her from the that lies ahead. When the signal is given, they spring into action, rushing forward to confront their enemies. But Jimin and his men are prepared. They fight with a precision and ferocity born of years of experience. Wyan watches from the sidelines, her heart racing as she sees Jimin take down one opponent after another. When it's all over, when the last enemy has been, she turns to him, her eyes wide with awe. "You were amazing," she breathes. He laughs, wiping the sweat from his brow. "I've had a lot of practice," he says, his voice gruff with exhaustion. "But I'm glad I could protect you." He looks at her then, really looks at her, and for a moment he can't help but wonder if there's a way for them to be together. A life where they don't have to hide in the shadows. "Come on," he says, offering her his hand. "Let's get out of here." Together they leave the warehouse, stepping out into the night. As they find a quiet spot to sit, hidden from eyes, Wyan leans against him, her head resting on his shoulder. He wraps his arm around her, pulling her close. The air is thick with anticipation, and beneath the faint light of a nearby street lamp, she can feel the warmth radiating from his. She takes a deep breath, gathering her courage, and then closes the distance between them. His are soft and full, and she feels a shiver run down her spine as the finally breaks. They both gasp for air. He looks down at her, his eyes full of wonder, and she knows that he's feeling the same things she is. It's a brief fleeting moment of connection in a world that is often cold and. But for now, they have each other, and that's enough. "I never thought," she starts, her voice barely more than a whisper. He shakes his head, her forehead gently. "Neither did I," he whispers back, "but I'm glad we did." And in that moment, they both know that they've stumbled onto something special, something that could change everything.
You're my star.